What are your thoughts on Chelsea? Is Graham Potter the problem? Does Potter need more time? Should Chelsea have never fired Tuchel? Or is this a team that, has all of this superstar power? Enzo Fernandez was one of my favorite players from the World Cup, among others, João Felix. I don't necessarily think João Felix is the answer to their problems, but is it more so of they need more time with Potter, or this is just a club that is lacking that identity right now?
Yeah, let me put it differently. I think this team has a clear direction. I mean,
Okay.
I think it's very clear. I mean, identity you have to work on, but when you get 17 players in, and I don't even know how many in January, that's going to take time. But the clear identity is simple. I mean, this is a team that went through Armageddon. I mean, you couldn't think of that. You couldn't think of a scenario. Even if you try, if you were to say that Chelsea's going to falter one day and badly, you'd come up with so many different ideas than what happened to them, and the war in Ukraine and Russia, Abramovich, and all of a sudden this team's for sale. This is a team that was, I don't want to say bankrupt, but remember, I mean, they couldn't. They had to take buses and suspended and all of that stuff. So I mean, that's unfortunate. Now, I mean, the whole thing was the right thing to do, but when you just concentrate on football and, forget about being just self-righteous for these players and for the fans, I mean, it's just crazy what happened, right? They went from an owner who was all about winning and winning now, who had a lot of money and was willing to spend it and lose it because he was losing money. No questions about that. I mean, he was putting money every time he needed a player. It didn't matter how much it cost. If it was an experienced player and a winner, he'd get him. It wasn't great for the books, I suppose, but he didn't care because he had that money and he had that money to lose. And so all of a sudden, new owner comes in, an American who either is trying to make everybody forget about Roman Abramovich and his way of doing things, or just thinks differently, saying this is going to be a team that may be winning trophies differently and in the future. And it's certainly, buying a very young players. In the last Premier League game, I think they had 7 starters under the age of 24, which is very unusual from the older ways of that I was just mentioning. So I think, as you see it here, he's willing to throw money at it. And from everything I understand, from what we read from our sources, is that Graham Potter is the man. It doesn't matter what the results are going to be, and he's going to want to have him not just next season, but for the seasons to come. Now, I believe that, but I also know the reality of things is such that you can say all you want about how much you trust and like and want Graham Potter, but there comes a point if you don't see that development, and I don't know when that's going to happen. Of course, Graham Potter won't be the man. I believe, and I said it earlier already, that he's going to be here for the rest of the season. But I do think that Chelsea has to finish season strong, just to show that even with so many chances, that there is some identity. Because right now, direction is there, but the identity is missing.
So that's the thing, Graham Potter, I believe the stat was that he'd won 2 out of 13 games recently. And I believe Chelsea most recently played West Ham United, where they ended up drawing that game. So it comes to this conversation now where fans are like, bring Tuchel back. But at some point, fans weren't happy with Tuchel because they said he played too defensively. Then you bring up Potter, who's highly revered by a lot of very good managers right now. You've heard Klopp say really good things, Pep say really good things. So yeah, I'm not sure at this point in time, like what should be happening with Potter, but you would have to assume at some point, if Chelsea's not finding a way to win, and I'm not even saying against Arsenal or City, like against a West Ham United with the players that they had on the field. And I don't believe in sacking coaches right away. I do think that managers need some time, but I am curious if Potter is the guy for Chelsea. Maybe that's the right way to put how I'm feeling. Ten Hag has proven that he's the right guy for United. And I know he's had more time with United than Potter's had with Chelsea. But I think with the players that Potter has and Todd Boehly supporting his every move, you think that they would at least start piecing together a team that is putting together results at this point in time. The fan base seems worried. The fan base now is like, bring Tuchel back.
Well, I mean, they're not used to it, first and foremost, and that's why they're worried. But, a couple of things. With Thomas Tuchel, You have to you have to remember it was more about the players. Players did not enjoy playing for a
Mhm.
lot of players did not enjoy playing for Tuchel, right? Because we know how he is, and many of them has said like playing next to him on the sideline. They just didn't enjoy it because the way he goes about things. So I think that was the move. That's why that move happened. It wasn't because Thomas Tuchel wasn't a good manager, because he's proven
Mhm.
already that he is. So I don't think, even with younger players, I don't think that Thomas Tuchel will be even considered by Chelsea and Todd Bowley. That's just my opinion. So that's one thing. In terms of winning things, I think, and this is just my guess, but I think, having been in situations like this, similar, obviously not at that level, but I think they've written the season off. I mean, to a degree, you could say Liverpool has as well.
Mhm.
Although, yes, there was a big win. When I
Yeah.
say written off, maybe the Premier League. Obviously, they'll give it a push, and if you go on a run, anything's possible. But I think
Mhm.
there's a full understanding. Um, and maybe it had to be explained to Todd Bowley, because we read, we've heard about it, that he thought he'd be in the Champions League every year. That's just automatic, but it is. But I think at the end of the day, looking at their position, looking what they've done, everybody there understands that getting to Champions League is going to be impossible. So, having said that, I think Graham Potter is going to get that time. I think it's difficult now because the Champions League's still there, and
Mhm.
for as long as
Yeah.
this is going to be interesting what happens tomorrow, because I think that team, Chelsea, Graham Potter, and the whole organization understands that anything's possible. Those are two games against a very good Borussia Dortmund team, who
Mhm.
overnight kind of changed things around a little bit
Mhm.
for themselves. But it's an opportunity, and it's late in the stage where it's possible. But when it comes to the Premier League and getting this team together, I mean, it's hard. I mean, there's no time to train. You just introduce, how many players that, they're just learning about each other, right? I mean, they know their names, I suppose, but
Yeah.
it's not that easy when you're playing every 2 or 3 days, and you have to integrate all these players, and you basically have no training sessions, right? Because after the game, it's kind of nice and easy, and then the day before another game comes. So I think that's difficult. That's why I think that, and again, I'll repeat that. I think some sort of progress, even if it's small, a 1 or 2 or 3 good wins in a decent
Mhm.
style, where fans can say, wow, that was pretty nice. Young players showing this, are needed for the rest of the season, to sort of give that confidence to the team, to Graham Potter, but most importantly to Todd Bowley, who's probably looking for that, for the little things, to see that this longer term project needs to be with Graham Potter.